Okay, guys, so we'll kind of get started here. So, like Brad said, it's a talk on future tech, and we'll talk about some new stuff, but I like to focus on the future type things because I know through a lot of these support groups, you guys talk about the new things that are going on. I want to remind everybody that this is my daily thing, and so if I say terms or there's things you're not getting, stop me so I can explain them so that you don't go through the presentation and confused, and the other thing is I talk really fast, so remind me to slow down if I'm talking too fast for everybody.
Big. I don't know.
Okay, so I guess a little bit about myself. I've had type 1 since I was 6, 24 years now. I work at IDC. I spend a lot of time there. I love my job. I see some of you guys from studies that are there. You guys have participated with us. We're a group of about 24, 25 people, and we do studies with people with type 1 diabetes, type 2, new medications, new technology. We do a lot of dietary studies, and kind of the big hot button item right now is studies with nutrition and how different types of foods affect different people. Because as we've learned, not everybody, the same food, we can all have a cup of rice and it's not going to affect all of us the same way. Some of us might need to take less carb than what the box says, and some might need more or might need to, kind of do an extended bolus, and some of us might not. And so that's kind of our new thing, is working on mobile apps and logging nutrition and having these algorithms learn what different foods affect different people and how to bolus for them. You guys, I just got a new computer here too, so there we go. Hang in with me while I struggle a little bit. So first, clinical research and how to get involved. I would love to kind of start out with the question of really asking you guys, is there anybody out there that has questions about being in research studies or different things I can answer? I always hear some of the funniest things when people first get involved in research, that they, might think they're going to be lab rats or locked in a hospital for 2 weeks or those types of things. And so I like to just kind of get some of those myths out of the way if anybody has any questions or if has some of those things on their mind.
If we've been in a research study, do we need to re-sign up for others, or
you are in my? You do not, but you're in my database, and so the database gets really long. And what happens when we have studies is we might have 3 or 4 pump studies, and then we'll have kind of a dry spell. And the next thing you know, we're doing all insulin pen studies. And so I always tell people to give me a call and check in, make sure that I have your profile updated. So that's kind of how I pull patients, is I kind of filter through and kind of grab what we knew from you the last time you were in a study with us, or what you filled out with a form to get involved and added into our database. We send mailers out, and then really the number one way to keep up on studies and how to get involved is to go to this website here at the bottom. It's this healthpartners.com/institute/research/studies, because we made it really difficult. Sorry about that, guys. But this site, when you open it up, will bring right to the page, and it has up-to-date information about things that I'm currently recruiting for.
Okay.
The other 2 sites on here is, so clinicaltrials.gov is a site that is out there that the government puts on, the federal government, and it's not very user-friendly, but it does have all clinical trials that are being completed, and then it'll also give you updates, after a study is completed, on the results and what was found. And so this is a good way to kind of get involved and figure out what studies you might want to be a part of. It'll also show all of the centers, and you can pick your distance and how far you're willing to travel. This is kind of the gold standard, I guess, with research. Any study that's being conducted is given what's called an NCT number, and that number gets put into this database, and then any updates that are out there are going to be updated through this site here. It will tell you that they're slow at updating the site. We have some studies that have finished up and we haven't been recruiting for quite some time, and they still have the studies up there, and showing active recruiting or that there are, you know, studies still being conducted. And the reason for that is when we are doing a clinical trial, we're not the only site that's doing that trial. So even though we might have found all of our patients and finished our study, there may be some smaller sites that are, or sites that were added in later that have not finished recruiting their group or finished conducting their trial yet. So they're, kind of that data can be a little bit misleading. So the first thing I would recommend if you want to get involved is I would go to this site down here. It's put on by JDRF, the antidote.me site, and you can fill out your information. It'll tell you what's available in your area, and then you can also sign up for alerts via email that will tell you different studies that are open, and it'll send you, I think, about a monthly, sometimes it's every other month, just an alert on what's out there and what you might qualify for. I will tell you that different trials require different things. And so the one thing I think that a lot of people have a hard time or get frustrated with clinical trials are their requirements or the qualifications to get into a trial are different. And it's sometimes you can say, yes, I want to be in a clinical trial and be, you know, the perfect candidate and meet some of those qualifications. And then they have one weird one that will knock you out. Or I might have, you know, 20 people that all meet the requirements, but I'm only allowed to take 2 people that are currently on an insulin pump in CGM, and then the others have to be pump only or MDI or new diagnosis in the last 30 days or something like that. So the best way to do is to just call and just know that if we have a clinical trial, you can always give me a call and we can talk through it, and we'll always try to get everybody onto a study. It might not be the one you were hoping for at that moment, but I usually get everybody on at least one study once in the, you know, over the years. And it's really worth the while, but it can be frustrating to kind of have all these studies in mind and really be excited, and then, you know, find out later that you can't participate for something that has, you know, nothing really to do with you, or something that could knock you out of qualifications, that could kind of be taken personally or things like that. So that's a good way to get involved. I will leave my contact information with Brad too to share so that people can contact me at the IDC. The best way to get added in is to call and leave me a voicemail and just let me know your name and address, the type of diabetes you have, your current medications and devices, and then I create a profile in our system so that when I go through, I can pull different lists of people to send mailers or to call when we have new trials that start. Okay, so the next thing, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I don't know if everybody really cares to hear about this part or not, but I'll talk a little bit about it. It's basically the FDA has created new types of designations or classifications with medical devices that are coming to market. I know everybody gets frustrated that we have all this cool technology coming, and you know, we could hear about a device and it can take 3 to 4 years for it to get to market before we actually get to use it. And, you know, a lot of people get frustrated being that FDA is the problem, and really it's not FDA's fault necessarily. It's the process that has to be followed, and they are doing some pretty cool things to try and speed that up. So breakthrough device designation, this is a special program that was created to provide a more timely way. Oh, sorry guys. There you go. A more timely way for patients, and then HCP is health clinical physicians to access medical devices. How it works: companies and manufacturers apply for it, and they have to meet 2 criteria. First, it has to be provided a device that is an effective treatment or diagnosis of a life-threatening or chronic illness. And then secondly, it must have one of 4 other criteria. So really what this is saying is, like, if there are a new device that's coming to the market and there's no other device on the market like it, it actually can kind of get moved forward, because if the benefits are outweighing the risks, we want to make sure people have access to that medication or that device sooner than later, but also make sure we're still following the, you know, the rules with having enough clinical data and making sure the device is safe before it gets put out for mass use. So a nice example of this is that the Medtronic 670G was approved in 3 months. And same with the Tandem's Control-IQ was actually approved in 6 months, and that's unheard of. Prior to this, we could finish up a clinical trial and it could take over a year or more to kind of go back and forth and talk about the data and finish asking or answering questions the FDA has, and then even do additional studies to make sure everything is safe. So they really have sped up the process quite a bit. And then some other terms, I don't know if people are hearing about this, but iCGM and then ACE pumps. So first we'll talk about iCGM, and basically it stands for integrated CGM, and it means that this CGM is FDA approved to be linked to multiple different pumps and then create what we call SAP, is sensor augmented pump therapy, or HCL, which is hybrid closed loop pump. So if you have, as well, the future of pumps and CGM will look like, kind of filling your prescription or having whatever CGM you prefer to use or your insurance will cover, and then choosing whatever kind of pump you want. And you should be able to link them up together and still have a automated insulin delivery system, even though you don't have a Medtronic pump and a Medtronic sensor, or you like the algorithm in the Tandem pump, but you prefer the Medtronic sensor and the Medtronic pump itself, and you could be able to do that type of thing. So current devices that have that designation are the Dexcom G7. Freestyle Libre is also trying to get that iCGM designation, and then I believe the Eversense already has been cleared for that as well. Medtronic Guardian Connect is close to that soon too. And then ACE pumps, so it stands for Alternative Controller Enabled Pump. So, this would be having a pump that you can connect via Bluetooth and then connect it up to other CGMs and be able to create a closed loop system, just kind of like I said, and, maybe have the phone that's controlling the pump versus using the actual pump to control the automated insulin delivery. You could just have an app. Or you could connect it to Medtronic's system on their app on their phone, and then use an Eversense CGM. So kind of cool things coming with that way, and we call that kind of a plug-and-play system. Or this cute little slide talks about how it's kind of like creating a sandwich, right? You can go to Subway and you kind of tell them what you want and kind of create your own automated insulin delivery system that's customized to what works for you and your body, adhesive wise, and tubing or no tubing. And then insurance coverage too plays a big factor, for all of us. Okay, so the other thing we're going to talk about is CGM partnership updates. And this is kind of a big deal because we're kind of a big trend change in the market is all of these CGMs are connecting, the companies are starting to make partnerships with all the different pumps, and then they're also making partnerships with smart insulin pens. And so we're seeing insulin or smart pens that are really used in people that want to have that technology that the pump gives you without having to be connected or having to use an insulin pump. And so really just kind of talks more about, you can see how big the plug-and-play system will be, especially when Tidepool Loop is approved. You'll truly kind of be able to be kind of that first one that will get approved, and we'll be able to, have a CGM from, Eversense, and then have your Tandem pump or your Medtronic pump, and then using that loop algorithm. Okay, so I think some people are aware of this. I'm not sure if everybody is. I know they haven't started huge mass marketing yet, but Libre 2 has been FDA approved and is now available. So you can go to your pharmacy. I know CVS and Walgreens have the system out and available to get at. I know my pharmacy, when I called to get my system, they didn't know what Libre 2 was. They said they only had the original, and I kind of had to remind them that if you look in the computer system, I'm sure it's something that can be ordered, and they were able to find it and then have it the next day for me. The big deal with the Libre 2 is that it has customizable threshold alarms. So meaning that the other Libre, you had to scan to get your blood sugar. It didn't alarm you if your blood sugar was getting high or low. This system has the reader only currently. There is no phone app. But it does alarm when your blood sugar is hitting that threshold of high or low, and then you do still need to scan it to get the information, but you are able to have alarms. And I will say myself using it, I think the accuracy is a lot better than the first Libre. I had a hard time with it reading false lows, or reading low a little bit sooner than I actually was, and so I was really impressed with the upgrades of the Libre 2. The FDA is reviewing the phone app, so there should be an app for it at some point. I know carrying the reader has been a pain in my butt, but it's definitely been a really great upgrade. And then the no additional cost piece is a huge deal. And this one is going to have iCGM status at some point. They did not get it when they went for approval of Libre 2, but they are working with FDA to get iCGM status for Libre 2.
Caitlin, I don't know if you can say anything about it, but is the International Diabetes Center, are you guys going to be recruiting people for the Libre 3?
I can't say anything one way or another, but
okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if
no,
you could...
that's okay. That's okay. There's talks. There's talks. So if you're interested in Libre studies, let me know.
Okay.
And as soon as I will know how, maybe I'll send you an update, Brad, and you can send something out to the group.
Thank you. I probably should have talked to you ahead of time about when I should shut my trap. So.
No, any question is fine. I prefer that people ask and know if I can, I can't. But until we have like hard contract signed and those types of things, we're always talking with every group. We want studies from any pump company, any CGM company. But when we decide to put on a study at IDC, there's a lot of things that go into it. Sometimes it's cost. We have to be able to physically have the funds to fund a study. We do get compensated from the people that ask us to put the study on, but sometimes they aren't compensating enough for what it costs us to put a study on. So those can be kind of some barriers for us, or even timeline. If we have 3 or 4 pump studies all starting at once, and then we get offered another one, we may not have the staff to accommodate. So it can be frustrating when I know myself, I really wanted us to get the islet study, and we did not get that one, and I was super bummed. But there was only 6 sites chosen out of I think 103 or 4 sites that had applied. So it's always good to ask because you never know. The other thing that this Libre 2 will notify you of is if it's kind of lost signal, or it's too far away from the sensor, it might be laying on the sensor, sleeping on it. So Libre 3, so just as soon as Libre 2 was finally made available here in the US, Libre 3 has made its debut in Europe. So it received its CE mark, and what CE actually stands for is a very probably beautifully sounding long word that I cannot pronounce, but it's basically like our FDA approval. So it was approved for age 4 and up, GDM, which is gestational diabetes management, type 1 in pregnancy, and it'll be launching in the UK in the next few months. So even when something is approved, it doesn't always mean that it's launched, because it does take the company sometimes to ramp up production and be ready to actually sell the product. I know that we all had, when Dexcom went to the G6, we all wanted it, and they had a hard time keeping up on the amount of devices to fulfill orders. Medtronic had that same issue, and then Omnipod Dash was approved, and it sat kind of without launching for over a year because they really wanted to make sure they had enough supplies, but that was hard to wait for. So some of the big features with Libre 3 that people are really excited about is the size. So it's smaller than the original by 70%. It's about the size of 2 pennies that are stacked on top of each other. There is no reader, there's just a phone. It's real-time, minute-by-minute reading, so there's no need to scan. It's the same price. And the other thing I will say is that this is Libre 3 that was approved in Europe. So what we actually get in the US will be very similar and probably have all of these features, but may have something different, a little bit different, where the size will be the same, but our cost might be up because we have more memory in ours, or we might have some other additional features because they had some time to put in some new things between approval in Europe to the approval here in the US. Let's see here, let's go to the next slide. So Dexcom. Dexcom is working on, so it's called G7 or Dexcom Verily, and that's also very, very small. You guys can see the difference between the two products in the picture here. What's really impressive with the system is that it's fully disposable, just like the Libre is now, that you kind of connect the first kind of pod to the second pod, and then when you put it on your arm, you wear that patch for 14 days, and then you rip it off like a Band-Aid and throw it out. Dexcom, we currently reuse our transmitters, and always need to have sensors and things like that, where this new system will be kind of fully together, where once it's over, you can actually rip it off and throw it away without having to reuse that transmitter. A really kind of interesting product that is approved, and I didn't put in this presentation because it's more geared towards physicians and clinics, but Dexcom did get approval for what's called the G6 Pro. And so the G6 Pro is like the regular G6 that everyone is using as a personal CGM, but the little transmitter and the sensor come together in one box, and it's a fully disposable system that you can wear and then send into your doctor, and they'll download it and give you your readings if you're somebody that doesn't like to wear a CGM all the time. The new applicator that's supposed to come with the Verily system will be smaller, lighter, less plastic. I have not heard anything about it being reusable. I know that's something people want, but it doesn't sound like that's happening with this rendition. It is extended wear, 14 to 15 day wear. I know some of you guys were on the call earlier. Carol was talking about being part of a Dexcom patch study with us. At IDC, we did get to kind of play around, not with the Verily, but with the new type of adhesive that they will be using in the 14 and 15-day wear. We had participants wear 3 different types of sensors and see how long we could, see if we could really get that full 16-day of wear time without causing, redness and breakdown of skin. Reduced cost is also something that we are hearing about, which, no exact numbers yet, but we'd certainly like a decrease in that cost for those Dexcoms if we can. This will also send data to the phone. When these things get approved, typically they are approved for ISO or iPhones first, and then they end up getting the Android version out afterwards, or if they do have it with Android, it's with some phones and not all phones. So just, kind of being aware of that too, that can be a barrier when we have these new products. We are anticipating launch in 2021. There was some delays with COVID. For all research studies, we shut down at IDC for a solid, probably 6 months, if not more, before we were able to resume studies. And even now we are doing clinical trials, but we're not seeing patients at the capacity that we were prior, and everything's kind of gone remote, and we've had some big delays with our regulatory group and things like that. So these timelines on here are always fluid. So if I ever have a timeline on here of, it's expecting by March of 2021 or 2022, just know that it certainly won't be before that date. It could be right around that date, or potentially it'll change and be a little bit later. Okay, and then Medtronic is doing some work. I hear that frequently. Everybody wonders when Medtronic's going to give up on the Guardian or that clam-looking CGM and kind of get us something new and different to see. And so they are working on something called Project Zeus, or the Guardian G4. It will be no calibrations. It'll have that rechargeable transmitter base. It's the same size as the Guardian, so it's the same shape, but it has a new algorithm embedded in there, and then has that no calibration, and then ability to dose, as long as the system hasn't been, reused, or, is being worn well and the numbers are seeming accurate. A pivotal trial is underway with Zeus, and so as soon as that gets a little bit closer to finishing up, that will come towards approval. I've heard that we're looking as early as 2020 for this G4, and then it recently moved to early of 2021. So hopefully not too much longer. Probably not with the 770, but maybe with the 780G, we might see that system or that new sensor. The next thing they're working on, which is going to be a really large upgrade, is called the Synergy system. And so you can see this picture here where it's showing Synergy versus the Medtronic Guardian 3 sensor. It's much smaller, and then it also has a different shape, and it's fully disposable. Right now it's showing 1-day calibration. Is kind of the latest that we had heard at the, talking with the Medtronic staff, but it's likely that it'll go with no calibrations as well, especially if they get that what's called non-adjunctive approval. With Zeus, they'll have the same thing for Synergy. Okay, and then another CGM system that is, it's not available here in the US, but hopefully soon we might see something like this, is something called the SugarBeat CGM. It's basically a non-invasive CGM where there is no non-invasive, meaning no needle, there's nothing that goes underneath the skin. It just sits on top of the skin, and you can see here it's got these different kind of electrodes underneath here that are reading different blood sugars. And so you can see here on this little watch app next to it, that's obviously not milliliters, it's millimoles. This is over in Europe. It's been approved in since June. They actually have a second edition out since June 2019. It is 1-day disposable. They are working on having it work for longer than a day. They're hoping to have, 5, 6, 7-day wear, 14-day wear, who knows, maybe even 21-day wear. Eventually we'll get there. It is approved for dosing insulin, but as far as calibrations, I do believe you still have to calibrate the system in order for it to be used with for dosing decisions. What has been filed is a PMA, or it's basically a plan to submit the system to FDA for approval. So it's basically, they've said that we're starting to work with FDA and figuring out what they want from this company in a research study to get approval for this system to come out to the market here. They're also creating something called the ProBeat, which is in the wellness category. So one of the things that is becoming more of a trend in CGM world is having athletes who are not people that are have diabetes, but are using CGM to determine how food and exercise affects them while they're working out, and then kind of helps them build some muscle and do some other really cool things. I am not somebody that knows enough about that realm to give you any more information, but there's some pretty cool articles online if you ever want to take a gander. Another non-invasive CGM that has received funding, and we could see here in the next 2 to 3 years, is something called the BioLinq. And it is this teeny tiny little patch with these little teeth that kind of sit on the skin. Not something that gets puncturing the skin, but it kind of sits there, and it is reading blood sugars. It's the size of a nickel. Also comes with a pretty impressive app that does a lot of teaching about how food and exercise are impacting glucose levels. It has been funded by JDRF and then NIH, which is the National Institute of Health, which are both really good signs that this is a product that will make it to market. There are many products that start, and we might be seeing research studies and conducting all these trials, and then they never make it to market. But with funding behind them with NIH and JDRF, it's a pretty solid kind of seal of approval that they'll continue to get funding, and this product will make it to market. And then the Eversense XL. So Eversense kind of went in the dark for a little while here over COVID timing, being as they couldn't have new sensors implanted during COVID time. And now I've heard that they're kind of back on board too and trying to get things moving. They have a lot of clinical trials going on, and then they recently were bought out. And so Eversense is still there and still coming. They are working on the XL system, which would be a 180-day sensor, not the 90-day sensor. It was expected to release late 2020. We can probably expect that that's going to now be 2021, hopefully in the first or second quarter. It is already on the market in Europe, and they're seeking FDA approval to be able to dose off the sensor. Eversense is one of those systems that sensor is in your body for so long that I'm not sure that they will ever get to the point where there is no calibrations, at least not in the next couple of renditions. With a sensor underneath the skin for that long, that's kind of your only way to make sure that that sensor is still working. And with the Dexcom and the Medtronic, we do change those out after 14 days or even 21 days. Something that's in your body for 6 months needs some type of checking to be safe. And so what the company has said is they might do something like a once a month calibration or once a week calibration kind of a thing. They are also working on different ways so that you could use this system kind of like the Freestyle system that's out now, where you don't need to have the transmitter sitting over your skin. You could just scan it and be able to get all of your readings on your phone from the last 8 hours, or use the meter and scan it, or maybe just the phone. And then if you want to have it like the Dexcom does, where you put the transmitter over the top and you're getting your readings consistently to your phone, that you are able to do both. Some people don't want the constant alerts throughout the day, but at night they really want those alarms and they want to be woken up and to have those reminders. The other cool thing about the Eversense system, go ahead, Lisa.
What is the benefit to having something implantable under your skin? Because I always think, doing that could increase risk of infection, or if it isn't working, you've got to kind of pull it out. So is it just because some people don't like to wear something, they want it more hidden, or what would be the benefit?
When I first heard of the system, I was kind of right where you were sitting. My thought process is, I don't know who is going to convince me to, cut my arm open and put in a sensor. That just seemed like a lot when I had Dexcom and other things like that. And then as I started to talk with a gal that is actually wearing the system, my thought process kind of changed. And yes, you have the same, the risks of, infection, and you are having an opening created. It's not nearly as invasive as I was expecting. They do a teeny tiny little incision. They don't even use stitches to close it up. It's just a steri strip or a kind of a strong Band-Aid. And then some of the benefits that I think really spoke to me is just the being able to kind of take that sensor off whenever you want, or take that transmitter off. And like, you can have a true shower, right? We talk about like an actual naked shower, or like when you can shower and you have none of your devices on and it feels like it's a brand new day. And imagine being able to do that every day. I also like that there are different adhesive options that they offer. You are all ones that you can kind of pull off your skin and then put right back on. So I think about like my arms in the summertime at weddings and whatnot. I have some that have my Dexcom patch on, and kind of this big tape thing over it. And not that I really mind that, but there are some times that I might wish that it was hidden a little bit more and I could take it off and do my pictures or whatever and throw it right back on. The other thing that was cool about this is I think about how much stuff I carry around, especially when I travel. I carry all these extra Dexcom sensors and a transmitter and, all my backup stuff. And truly the only thing that you carry with this is extra tape. As if the tape kind of gets, not clean, you have to switch out the tape, and then the charger to charge the transmitter, because everything else is on the phone. And that was something too. So it perked my interest enough that I definitely want to try it. The sensor's MARD was really impressive, and MARD is the clinical term that we use, and the lower the percentage is, the better or more accurate the sensor is. And so most CGMs are right around 8, 9, 10, and this system was the lowest. I believe it was around 7 or 8. And most were really closer to like 9, 10, 11 kind of a thing, which is still really accurate, because most meters are at a 20% for a MARD is the approval, the percentage you have to be under to receive approval. So CGMs have really come a long way in being even more accurate long-term than even blood glucose meters are. But those are some reasons why somebody might want to do this kind of a system
Do you have
versus the
to do it?
regular Dexcom.
Do you have to do it in different parts each time it's replaced, or do you have problems with scar tissue?
So it's hard to see on this picture, but the sensor piece of a long kind of stick looking thing actually has a white bar around it, and that bar actually kind of releases I don't want to say chemical, or releases this kind of a substance that prevents scar tissue from forming and build up. And so the gal that actually had it on, I was expecting to see a scar, and she didn't have anything. It was really quite impressive. And yes, you do at the moment, you wear it for 3 months in one arm, you have to switch to the other arm, but they are working on approval to kind of open up and take out the old one and then put the new one right back in the same spot. So you could kind of always have the same spot that you're using for sensors. At some point, you know, these are all things they say they're working on, and what they actually end up coming out with can be different or could take a lot longer than you think, but that is something that was on their list of things to address.
I have a quick question about retrieval of the sensor. I know there was a lot of trouble and that they were beginning to do it in plastic surgeons' offices who were used to actually doing surgery, but there's a lot of scarring from retrieving the sensor. Do you have any further information on that?
So, Eversense from the clinic side, you know, endocrinologists are not ones that went to, you know, I mean, all medical doctors, right, when they go through school, they have to do some type of training with you know, suturing and kind of doing placements, but they are not doctors that do procedures. And so a lot of clinics are very, when the system came out, they were not willing to kind of have it. They didn't want to have to learn how to place these things. They didn't want to have to learn kind of a new, a whole new really job that they hadn't had to do. Some of these people have been practicing for 20 years or more.
Amy Coney Bryant Barrett got confirmed.
Yeah. It's you know, one of those things that, you know, I did hear the same thing where some people are having a hard time, you know, with it kind of getting slippery or having a hard time getting it out. But I don't know if it's the newer versions or if it's the same version that the rep had told us that they had kind of made it this little notch in the top of it so that once you have a hold of it, as long as you have the clamp down, you really shouldn't have any slipping. It should come right back out. But you're right, they're still to this day, a lot of times providers still want to give patients what they need, and they just are willing to kind of say, you know, this is not my forte. I don't want to do a procedure like this, but I will write for you to go over to the dermatology clinic. They are used to doing this day in and day out, and those guys are skilled and use their hands for this type of procedure all the time, and they kind of, you know, pop it in and pop it right back out, and then have no problems. And you know, at Park Nicollet, our dermatology clinic is on the same floor and in the same wing as the endocrinology clinic is, so it's not hard to still have your appointment with your endo and then switch over and have your Eversense switched out every 3 months. And so, you know, again, the other part too is they work on different tools and different techniques on removing those things. I haven't heard much about having issues with it getting lost, because it doesn't really, they always say that it could move. Excuse me. But in the PROMISE trial, there was no adverse events or severe adverse events where they lost a sensor, were unable to retrieve a sensor, or had to have a surgery where they had to go in to remove it. And the other thing that I found interesting that I did not know is that if you wanted to try the system, this was FDA approved, that if you never got this removed, it is encapsulated good enough that it would never harm, or there's nothing in there that even if it did break open that could harm the body. Take that for what it's worth. You know, some people may have a different feeling about that. I'm not somebody that usually gets into politics type of a thing. I don't know if something would, leaving a piece of metal in the device in your body for the rest of your life would really do something or not. But according to FDA and the data they have now, they say there are no issues with leaving it in and never having it taken back out. Excuse me, guys. Any other questions on this one before I move forward? I know I kind of heard a couple people talking.
Probably not that important, but Essentia, did they buy them out, the Contour Next Meter company?
Yes,
Okay.
they did.
And then I
Yay.
also, oh, go ahead.
No, I just said yay. That means that a Bayer is a big company, or Essentia is a big company. So that will definitely, it's good for the Eversense system, making it long term.
Yeah. And I've heard of a couple OBGYNs, because they do Nexplanon birth control insertions into the arm, actually
Yeah.
have done this for a couple of patients too. I don't think it's too common, but I think it's a similar insertion and extraction.
Yeah, very much so. And you're right. We have some at Park Nicollet that are doing that too. It's the specialty center is large enough that we have all of those specialties right in the same building. And if somebody has 5 to 10 minutes, the procedure really is that quick and that simple that it's not hard to find a group willing to kind of do it, even if your endo is somebody that's like, I know I have shaky hands. That's not something I ever wanted to do or plan to do, and I'm not doing it now. And then there are some endos that they do a lot of thyroid biopsies and things, and they have no problem doing procedures like that. They're used to it, and they are ready to go and really want to kind of, do this for people if they can. So the first step is, if you're wanting something like this and your endo doesn't seem kind of on board or not quite sure about it because they don't have a lot of knowledge, is contacting your rep here in Minnesota. I know medical reps kind of or device reps get kind of a bad rap, where they can be pushy or they want you to try their product, and it can be a little frustrating, or you kind of want to, if you see them, you walk the other way. But a lot of our reps for the companies that we have here are phenomenal. Their job is to work hard for us. If you can't get something approved, or you're having a hard time getting insurance to cover it, they are our go-tos, even in the clinic. If a patient calls me and they're having a hard time getting their Dexcom approved, the first thing that I do if I can't figure it out is I call Chris Weston, and she kind of goes above and beyond to kind of help us out there. And the Eversense reps are really great, that if your provider is one that doesn't want to do this type of insertion, they have the name of 4 or 5 other doctors that you can see just to get it inserted, and will help you kind of get the paperwork done, or talk with your provider and say, your patient wants this, what can I do to expedite, or how can I help you get this completed? And so that's a really good way to kind of get some help if you're having a hard time getting coverage. All right. Also, a big thing with this Eversense system is that Medicare has established a national payment rate for Eversense system, meaning that at some point Medicare will cover having an Eversense, which is a really good thing. It's kind of hard to get things covered by Medicare. So this is a big deal when that kind of came through. And on to insulin pens, or smart pens. So right now, the ones that are on the market that I think everyone is probably aware of is the Lovely In pen. I have used it myself. I've heard other people use it. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I think it's another great tool that if you like it, then it's worth a try. It helps keep track of insulin dosage. You do get that nice bolus calculator, so you can kind of just punch in numbers and let the machine do all the math, and you don't have to think about it. I do like the missed dose reminders on it. I like that it's wireless, and it tells me if I left the pen in the car and it got too hot or too cold. I do like that, originally you could only have one pen. Now you can have multiple linked to the same app. And then a similar technology to this is something called a Go Cap. And a Go Cap is FDA approved. It is just not available to purchase yet. It should be relatively soon. And it's a cap that fits on any type of insulin pen, and it keeps track of the doses that you're taking. And it kind of keeps track of the insulin that's in there, and can tell you how cold or hot it's gotten. And then the app actually stores the data, and then it can be shared with providers, or you can even have an app that your family can follow and know that you took your insulin, and they have peace of mind. That's pretty kind of a cool thing too. There are a lot more pens that are coming out on the market too. So Novo Nordisk is working on what's called the Echo Pen 6. or the Novo Pen 6. And some people might have something similar to this, or they've seen this in the past, where the bottom of the pen kind of keeps track of the last time you took insulin, and the little timer counts down on how long that insulin's active for, how much time is left. But these pens are going to be a very large upgrade. They come with an app, and they connect with the CGMs that are on the market, and have some pretty interesting algorithms and things in there that can give you advice on what type of dosing you should do depending on the food or activity you have. The one con to that is you have to be willing to enter all that stuff into the app. So if you're somebody that is not good at, tracking food, or you just don't want to do that type of a thing, or enter kind of your daily stuff, the system is still probably useful, but you won't be able to use it to its full capabilities. The Malia pen, made by the Accu-chek company and the BioMEDICAL group, they're coming out. That's kind of this cap and little top system here that again fits on any type of insulin pen. Bigfoot BioMedical is a new company that's coming to market, and they will have a system called Unity, which is what's called a multiple daily injection titration app. Its estimated arrival was in 2020 with COVID. We can assume that that's most likely moved. And what they mean by insulin titration is that the app will tell the user what to take and help you titrate up and down your different doses depending on what your blood sugar is currently, or based off what type of food you have, help avoid stacking. And this system actually is an insulin pump system as well. So you could, we'll kind of see on the next couple slides when the Bigfoot slide comes up, but you could be an insulin pump user Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends you decide to transition to your pens and kind of go back and forth, and the system helps you do that seamlessly without having to contact your doctor, and or kind of have to, takes out the daunting step of trying to make sure you're not ending up low from switching back and forth. It's pretty impressive. Companies doing a lot, and they've kind of a cute logo. Novo Nordisk, Lilly, Sanofi, basically all of the big insulin pen companies, they are all trying to get on the smart pen train, and they'll all have their own versions or partnerships with other groups so that they can partner with CGM and give more options to people who are just not interested in wearing an insulin pump. And now kind of onto pumps. So the next thing coming from Tandem, now that the Control-IQ is out, is they are working on what's called T-Sport. So the T-Sport system is, this picture I have here is actually not of the T-Sport system. This is called a Cell Novo system, but the T-Sport will look very, very similar to this. You can see in this corner here next to the phone, that little black box, that is what the T-Sport pump, it's called the insulin patch pump. That's what that actually looks like. It's connected to the phone, and it will be controlled by the phone only. There isn't planning, where they don't have a plan to have an extra receiver or anything like that, or an external component. You just use your phone to control it. The goal of the launch was late 2020. That's definitely not happening now. That will definitely be closer to early 2021. It has a reusable base. So you can see that black part is the piece that gets recharged, and the little white kind of thing on the top here is the cartridge. And so you have the little kind of lure lock deal where you can have a very short infusion set. So it's like this gal is wearing it here. It's just this teeny tiny thing that is kind of attached to your arm, and you put a little sticker on the back side here so that it kind of attaches to your skin and doesn't pull. Or if you wanted to, let's say, guys, I'm sorry, I don't have enough analogies for you, but girls, when we wear dresses and we don't have, pockets, or we need like a nice long string to kind of like, drag through our shirts and whatnot, you can actually just use a regular infusion set and use this as a regular tube pump as well. It will have the Control-IQ algorithm on it at first. It is something that will be an ACE pump. So as a different algorithm comes out, or they make some improvements, you'll be able to download those other things and use your system with whatever CGM or algorithm you want for your pump to be on. There is only one button on the pump, and it is just kind of like the one that's on the pumps now, where you hold it down, you can do a quick bolus. That's a kind of a big deal, that you can bolus if you don't have your phone by you.
And this is 200 units, right, in this pump?
Correct. This is 200 units. But I will tell you I'm somebody that 200 units can get me through 3 days, but it cuts it a little bit tight. And so for anybody that's on a higher dose of insulin and you really need that 300 unit cartridge, Omnipod and a lot of these other groups, they are doing clinical trials so that you could use U200 or U500 insulin and still be able to use a small pump like this and then just be being able to use less insulin because that insulin's more concentrated. Okay, the next pump that's kind of coming our way is the Accu-chek Solo patch pump. You're kind of noticing a theme is my guess. And you'll see here, this thing received its CE mark in 2009. It is not a hybrid closed loop pump or an automated insulin delivery system. It has received its ACE classification, meaning that even though this thing isn't a standalone automated insulin delivery system, you could use it on, say, Tidepool, or you could use it with the Medtronic software in the Medtronic app and connect it with whatever CGM works for you, and then have it be an automated insulin delivery system. At some point, it is 200 units. It's got the same reusable base. So this white part here, can you guys see my pointer? Oh, good. Okay, great. So this white kind of base part here works a lot like the Dexcom transmitter does, where you use this thing for 3 months and then you toss it and get a new one. So it truly is a fully disposable system. And then the white or the kind of clear backing here is the reusable, well, it's a reservoir. So this part actually gets thrown away, but the batteries in here are what's called air batteries. So once you kind of pull it out of the cartridge and you connect the two, air comes through and wakes up that battery so that you can use the system. And then eventually you would just toss that piece and then reuse the space for the 3 months. The other really cool thing about this pump that I like is the screen down here, this blue kind of an orange looking device down here. This is actually a pick your size cannula. So let's say you're somebody that doesn't want the short 6 millimeter piece, you need that 9 millimeter length for kind of a tubing size. You actually can pick to choose either your 9 millimeter or your 6 millimeter. I'm not sure if those are the two sizes. That's just an example. And pick whatever you want for that day. Maybe on your arm you like 6 millimeter, but on your abdomen you like 9, or vice versa with your legs and arms. So you can kind of choose that. It does have this cell phone-y looking controller thing, and it does have a meter kind of on board and a big food library, just like the Omnipod does. And then this final picture over here is the Omnipod next to the Solo patch pump, so you can kind of see, size-wise, it is definitely thinner, and it has kind of a cool way that it locks on. It has some nice tape on there still, and it is kind of contained to the body and kept nice and small, but still have that nice 200 unit piece there, and then be able to reuse some of the components versus having to toss that big that big pod in the trash. And then again, this has been being submitted to FDA, so we should have it here very soon. I think this will be probably something we see in the next 3 months here, so maybe 6 months. I talked with some of the Accu-chek reps today, and so they're definitely kind of gearing up to be a little bit more active here in Minnesota. I'm assuming, knowing that they're going to be rejoining that pump market. Okay, so then Bigfoot BioMedical, that's the company we just talked about with these insulin pens. This is their insulin pump. I'm not sure if anybody ever wore I think it was called the Asante Snap insulin pump. Anybody remember that? Awesome. Okay, so that pump was pulled from market, and Bigfoot BioMedical bought out that company and all of its patents, and now they've redone that pump to this cute little thing here that has just these very few buttons that are pictures on the screen, so that you mostly are controlling the pump on the phone. You could do all controlling by phone, but you also, if you don't have your phone by you, you still could control the pump with the buttons. They are really wanting to this system is kind of a really nice all-in-one feature or all-in-one kind of company. So they want to offer monthly subscription service plans. So you could say, I want to wear your system and have this pump, but I don't want to spend the money and buy the pump. I want to be able to just pay a monthly fee, and they provide all of the insulin and the infusion sets or the pen needles, and they could send you both of your pens that you need here and the pump, and you could titrate back and forth between the two. It will be with the Libre 3. So it will have no finger stick testing. They also have a built-in, really nice built-in phone application part where it tracks. So every time you change out something, it's going to count down and alert you when it's time to reorder supplies. I thought that was a really nice feature. I know I myself, I feel like I always have more supplies than I do sometimes. And the next thing you know, I'm out of something or getting too close and cutting it too close. It also has a lot of, very virtual features where it's going to be in-phone training and things. So you won't need to do in-person training to get the system up and going if you choose not to. It also has a lot of nice personalization features and would require just one prescription. So that's a big deal for our providers. They were pretty excited about that, is having just to write one prescription for the Bigfoot BioMEDICAL system, and then you would use that company to send to get all of your supplies, and they would kind of help everything from there versus having to contact your CVS and then your Edge Park and last year's next, then Medtronic, right? So that'll be called Autonomy when it actually gets there. The system, it will be a little bit longer before we see this. Their smart pen system will be out first, and then the pump system will come out later. Yeah, still a very cool system on the way. Okay, so the next system we're going to talk about is the the BetaBionics iLet Gen 4 system. So this first picture here is a little guy in a trial at Stanford Center in California, and he's wearing 2 tandem pumps. And then the algorithm that was controlling all of this mess was on a phone. One pump is pumping glucagon, the other one is pumping insulin. You can see they're labeled here, I and G. And he has his Dexcom G4 over here that's kind of making that connection. So this was a study that was put on, quite a few years ago now, probably 5 years ago. And he was basically trialing all the different components separately before they get put into one system. And so they're expecting this could be released and approved with insulin only. So this feature or the system will have a chamber for glucagon and a chamber for insulin, but they're trying to get it approved for insulin only first, and then just have a cap on that glucagon system so that when they do receive approval for that, you could just unscrew the cap and put in that glucagon and be able to have what would then be a truly automated or truly closed loop system. HCL or hybrid closed loop system is referring to something that has automated insulin delivery, but a true automated system or artificial pancreas type system is not just giving insulin, it's also be giving glucagon. You don't want to drive a car with just gas, you also need a brake. And so that would be this would be one of those first systems to market that would have glucagon and Humalog or whatever insulin you use in the system. It's also made with just this incredible turnkey simplicity where it's bunch of icons. There's not a lot of wording or having to click through multiple screens if you don't want to. It is tubed, right? So that could be a con for some people who don't love tubing. It is also induction charging, so there's no cables or anything. You just lay it on this cute little induction charging pad that does have a cable, but at least it's not connected to the pump. It's waterproof. It'll work with G6 or Eversense. So again, you could pick whichever one you wanted to use and connect that. I'll go to the next slide here.
I had a question. How long does that glucagon last in the pump? Is that 2 or 3 days do they have?
So from my understanding, it was going to be 7.
Okay, cool.
We'll see if it actually gets there. That was the update when we were at the Friends for Life conference more than a year ago now, before I got to kind of hold and play with the system. But it sure is pretty impressive, you guys.
I have a question on the different types of insulin. Do you know if any of these that are coming out are going to like have where you can toggle between like a FIAS algorithm and, you know, a Novolog algorithm?
Yes, that is something in the works. So we recently did a study with, you know, I'm sure the name is different now than what I know it as, but Humalog has a quickened version or like a FIASP of insulin now. I think it starts with an L.
Lumagen or something like that?
Yep,
Lumagen?
you got it. Yep, whatever that is. We called it, the study was early. It was URLI, or that was what we called the drug then. And so we did do a study with 670G insulin pumps and trialing that insulin to see if that made a big difference. And our site did not see a huge difference. We only had 6 patients. And so it wasn't obviously enough data to truly make a big decision on. But there are groups and companies working to improve insulins and then be able to, yes, switch between the ultra rapid acting insulin and then back to your Novolog and have the pump still work. Kind of the same thing with that U200 or U500 insulin. This iLet system will definitely have that because the cartridges in this pump are only 1.6 ml. So that's even smaller than the little 1.8 cartridges that Medtronic had in the older Paradigm pumps. As far as timeline of when all that is going to be out, you know, I really thought that we would have seen that now with FIASP. So I would think anytime really in the next year, we should start seeing something like that with either the FIASP product or the Humalog product. Yes, Lisa?
So I have a question when you said the induction charging, because I remember
Sure.
when we were going to get a induction stove, I called both Dexcom and I can't remember which pump company, but they said you could not have an induction stove. You had to be at least 12 inches away from it. So I'm wondering what has changed.
You're right. I do remember that. I remember that being on the one of our old contradictions list of things with different insulin pumps. As far as what has changed that they have fixed and made that happen, I have no idea. I will tell you that the case that this thing is very, very sturdy. It's a very heavy duty metal, and so my guess is it has something to do with that. But when this product does actually get to market, or next time I talk with the guys from this company, I will ask them that and hopefully have an answer for you. But it was impressive. They did have people wearing the system and it was working great, and they would throw it on the charger and pull it right back off. So they found a way. I'm just not sure how they did that yet. Good question though. You can kind of see here, this is just showing the different types of infusion, or this is the infusions that they have now. It's not something that is being sent to market yet, and what we'll likely have for an infusion set will look very different. But this is kind of a proof of concept kind of thing of what an infusion set truly could look like with those 2 cannulas and having just one port that connects versus having to have 2 different sites that would need to get changed out. You can see here the other big thing with this insulin pump is that you would not do normal carb entry. You could choose to put in carb entry if you wanted to or not. And they have the buttons here. So if you were eating a meal that is usual for you, you would just hit the usual for me size meal. Or if you were going to have like a snack, you would hit the much less. If you have, you know, big pancakes and syrup, you'd hit that more button, but not needing to actually put in or do any real carb counting. The algorithm is just taking into account that you're saying I'm eating a lot of food, and it's going to really crank up that that insulin and keep a really close eye on a rise. It's also made very friendly for young kids or people that speak different languages too. You think there's no words they have to follow. It's all these kind of cool little icon pieces. It's touch screen, and you can kind of see this is the 6. You can kind of switch between 3, 6, 12, or 24 hours, and you can see your Dexcom trend lines. And then at the bottom here, this is actually showing the insulin line. That's actually probably not the right picture there. I had one that showed it delivering insulin and then reading the blood sugars right next to it. But yes, a very cool system that is going to be to market. They have been working on the system for more than 10 years, and it's pretty impressive. more to come from them, hopefully really soon for us to see. Another pump that is out there on the market currently is the Ypsomed, and that's the company. The pump is called the Ypso pump, and it looks a lot like the Adesanti Snap pump. It again has icons, no words. It has these refillable cartridges. It's using a new type of infusion set. This is an Orbitz infusion set. I like that it has the blue tubing so that when you're actually looking and you have insulin running through there, it's a lot easier to see if you have bubbles. It also has this adapter that snaps onto the top here, and you don't have to prime the tubing. As soon as you snap the pump on there, it automatically starts to pull that insulin through so that you don't have to kind of sit there and prime your system. And you can imagine that with a name like Orbitz, or I think it was called the Orbitz deal, it actually kind of orbits around the hub there, so you don't need to kind of be careful how you angle your infusion set when you put it in. That tubing can actually go 360 degrees all the way around the infusion site port, and kind of move with you. It does have a battery compartment here, so it'd be using batteries, not rechargeable. It is something that's being submitted as a ACE pump. It also has a nice small 1.6 ml cartridge, and so you would be able to use it with the U500 and U200 insulins. It's got a really nice bright screen, easy functions with just swiping, and it's got a application on the phone that you would also be able to use to control the pump at some point whenever we officially get there here in the US. And then this next part here is talking about the Medtronic 780G system. So 770G was recently approved that you can sign up for. I know that, I don't think they've started shipping the pumps yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows, but the 770 pump has the same algorithm that the 670 does. The big difference is that the pump is able to be upgraded like the Tandem pumps are. And then the 780G will be the same as the 770, but it'll have a different algorithm on the pump. 770 also, or 780 also is something that takes care of all those extra bolusing or extra finger pokes you're having to do. There's less calibrations. It is also something that you would put in carbs, but you wouldn't need to be doing as much as you are now. So this first kind of graph up here, this first image is showing, the day in the life of a pump user. They wake up, they have this awful dawn phenomenon, and they calculate a correction, and then maybe they eat breakfast and check BG and do their insulin correction in the middle of the day, then they have lunch and kind of do it all over again. And life as a 780G user would truly be just putting in an estimated carb amount, and then not needing to do anything in between, because the algorithm has truly been improved that you're covering your carbs, but it's supposed to take away all that stuff that happens in between, right? The stress and the hormones that cause those fluctuations that we have a hard time controlling day in and day out. And so it's going to be a nice step for the Medtronic system. Like I said, it'll still have that Guardian sensor. Hopefully the G4 if it gets there in time, but for now it'll be the G3. Less finger pokes, and there should be some auto mode exiting, but not nearly as much as there are now, and not getting in that kind of repetitive loop that I hear all about. So then Medtronic is already, oh, go ahead, Lisa. If anybody else is waving, by the way, I only see 4 people. So make sure you speak up. I can see Lisa because she's one of my 4 that I can see right now.
What is the range in the new one as far as how low and how high it will target?
Yes. So when we trialed it at our site, the range was 112 to 140. And it would start correcting much earlier. As far as what actually will be FDA approved and put on the market is questionable. It's just what we trialed in the clinical trial, but definitely a big improvement from what we saw with the 670. I know people were frustrated that they were able to kind of keep their A1Cs much lower without the algorithm on. than they would if they if they would have kept it on versus just doing it themselves, because that it had too many safety features on it, and people wanted to have better or a little more tailored control where they could truly keep their blood sugar riding at a lower than 120, right?
So when it's at 112, does it shut off?
It doesn't, no. So it's targeting for 112, right? But it doesn't mean as soon as you get to 112, it's going to stop. It's just going to always be trying to stay within that amount. So I know in our study, we did have patients that did the 105 set point and they hated it and they went back to 110. And so is they just had too many lows, or they just didn't like how closely they were riding to that line, and it was just not working for them. So as far as what's it approved at though, that's still to come. I want to make sure people are aware that I'm, when we do studies, I just share based off of what, people tell me, their experiences in the study. It's until like papers come out, until Medtronic, presents their own data and they give all of the information from all of the groups that did the studies, I can only speak to what my experience is.
Because when I eat, I like to have my blood sugar around 90 before I eat a meal. And I'm just wondering, that's what's kept me away from closed loops, because I'm like, well, it's going to keep me higher. And I'm trying to keep my A1Cs in a normal range, not a range where people have diabetes. And so that is what's frustrated me in the past, is that this is something that's automated and it only has the ability to keep you in a range where you would be considered somebody with diabetes. And so that's why I was asking.
It makes sense. And that brings up a really good point. And I know I'm going off topic, so I apologize. I'm kind of going to get on a little bit of my soapbox a little bit here. And, A1C is the gold standard, right? I was, from the time that I've been diagnosed, I've always want my A1C as low as possible. And what we've learned at IDC and at centers all over is that A1C is not the best tool or not the best measurement for determining patients' control level. So, we give a range, right? We say, well, an A1C like under 7 is kind of what your goal is, right? And everybody tries to push to where we can get to where a normal person is, or we say normal, right? That's probably not the best way to word that. But we work really hard, and we're doing the job of a pancreas, and so we can only do so much, and we strive for that, and that's a great goal to have. But there's a point when we are striving so hard to get that lower A1C that we spend too much time low, and that doesn't have great effects either. So what we found is that really if you can keep your time in range above 70, less than 4% low, which is anything under 70, and then less than 1% really low, which is anything under 55, it equals out to being an A1C of under 7 or an A1C around 6.5. And we say that it's not a very good factor because, an A1C, it gives you a kind of a number, but what we've seen is, somebody that has 70% time in range, I really wish I had the slide I could show you guys right now. Basically, we've had patients that have come in, and we've had 3 people, all with the A1Cs of 6.7. The first patient was using a pump and a sensor, and they had their A1C at 6.7, and that's the only thing we've had to look at or to make adjustments on for years. But when CGMs came about, we're able to stick sensors on everybody. So we have 3 patients, all with A1Cs of 6.7. And all 3 patients, if that's all the information we had, we would treat the same. Say, great, you're at goal, you're even better than what your goal is. Let's leave it the way it is. But then when you put a CGM on, we were seeing some really high variability. So variability where yes, your A1C is in the great level, right, or at a great range, but you're spending a lot of time bouncing high then low, high then low. And really what causes, the stress and the fatigue and complications from diabetes are those big highs and dips low. Causes a lot of problem for the body. So even when your blood sugars are high, we like to rage bolus. I'm guilty of it too. But it's really not good for our bodies. It's much better to bring our blood sugars down slowly, get it back into range, and not have these big giant ups and downs. It's hard to get off that roller coaster once we get on. So I really encourage people to throw that A1C out the window, be done with it. Focus on your time and range. If you can have your time and range above 70, you are at goal. Congratulations. That is fantastic. I myself was able to get myself to 95% in range. I know my blood sugars were great. I was doing fantastic. And my A1C is still coming up that I was like 7.1. It's just, and there's just no way when you look at my time in range, I was so much healthier and felt better. I had less time low, and it's really a good indicator of diabetes control, where A1C is something we're always going to probably still use. We use it for insurance purposes. It's kind of the gold standard, but it's something that we might need to start moving away from. You know, we get an A1C by testing, you know, the blood, and it's every person is different. So your genes, your race, your just how fast your body regenerates red blood cells can cause some big fluctuations in A1C numbers. So just because you're 6.7 doesn't mean that that's a 6.7 that the person next to you has. So it's really not a good indicator in the long run. You know, best thing to do is focus on that time and range.
With what
Yeah, and
explaining, I just put it into the chat too, so you can just kind of click on that, and that shows the many faces of 7% A1C. So for example, someone has 40% in range, there you got this big roller coaster up and down, and another person has 100% in range. So kind of, you know, shows a picture of what she's explaining.
Thank you,
yeah,
Brad.
and the American Diabetes Association is actually launching a big campaign starting in January. One that's going to have a whole consumer education arm to it, and the other for a provider, specifically on time and range.
Awesome.
So you'll see more about that here shortly.
That is fantastic to
You were,
hear.
by the way, from the American Diabetes Association, right, Molly? You're still in there?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Thank you for joining, by the way.
17 years. Yeah, I don't get on many, but one that I did not want to miss tonight.
Hi, Molly.
Hi.
All right. So
How do we look at what you posted, Brad?
You go into chat on the bottom kind of toolbar. You click on chat. It says download JPEG. You just kind of click that or double click that. It's a very small picture, but it kind of gives you that CGM graph. And
I click on it and nothing comes up.
Therese, I can go over that with you a little bit later. That's all right. Or I can just email you. How about that? I'll just email you.
Okay.
okay, so guys, we are getting close to 8 o'clock. I did not realize how far over my time I am already. What do you want to do, Brad? Do we want to keep going? Do we want to stop and ask for questions, and then we set up to kind of finish up slideshow another day, or what is everybody's kind of thoughts?
I want to make sure that you had enough water to drink there, that you still catch your breath. I think you know, people are holding on, and people can go back and forth, and they can kind of grab some food, but people are eating it up. It just depends on how well you're doing. So
I'm doing good.
Engaged. This awesome presentation. Thank you.
No problem. We're getting closer. I don't have any idea how many slides I actually have in here. I probably should have checked that before I jumped on. But we'll go through and we'll see how far we get. And worst case scenario, I can send out my slideshow and kind of you know, come back if there's some additional questions too, if we don't get to all of them, or you can always email me and I can get to them as you know, as time allows, kind of a thing. So Medtronic has another pump that they're working on already. This is something that will certainly not be out for, you know, probably 3 years, maybe more, you know, definitely not in the next year or two, but it's called the Medtronic PCL, or Personalized Closed Loop System. And so this system itself, it is something that would not need any more carb counting. It is using software that they acquired from a company called Neutrino. The goal is to have everybody at a time and range of 85% while using the algorithm in the system. It's actually not even one algorithm, it's 3 algorithms. So the first algorithm is the algorithm that will be in the 780G, which controls the basal and the stuff that's in between your meals. It then has a meal prediction algorithm, And then the third algorithm, I do not know enough about to really talk to, but it has to do with the fuzzy logic piece of, we have an expectation with the first algorithm where we expect your blood sugar to be, but this other one will kind of come in and kind of take care of all the stuff that goes beyond, or if you, are super stressed, the system can't always take care of that piece. So this fuzzy algorithm will come in over the top of it and kind of try to keep that blood sugar pushed back down based off of things that are unexpected, like stress or infusion sets that kink, and those types of things. And there'll be a lot more on those types of algorithms as it gets closer. I only know about the first two with just hearing about kind of planning and the first few talks that Medtronic has given at their, I forget what the word would be called, their investor meetings. It would be smartphone controlled and use that new Synergy sensor. It does have that breakthrough device designation type of piece. So they should, get through, FDA a lot quicker than they have in the past. I say 2 to 3 years, is just my guess, right? It's where it could be. It could take longer, maybe shorter. We don't know, but it's cool to see that there's a lot in the works with them. And it's, unknown if they're going to seek that ACE pump status with this system. I would assume that that is something they will do, seeing as they are doing that with the 770G or 770 and 780G. But I certainly didn't want to say that when it's unknown. And what would be a day in the life of somebody with a personalized closed loop? It would be simply just announcing that you have breakfast or lunch or a snack, you've exercised and maybe had dinner, and other than that, you shouldn't need any other interaction and still be able to get at an 85%, kind of time and range piece, as long as you're not having, those infusion sets kinking or having any issues there. So new in the world of blood glucose meters, we talk about all these new pumps and CGMs. It seems kind of silly to talk about meters, but there'll always be a need. And even myself, I've used a lot of really cool systems on the market, and I still get amazed when I see new meters and think about how cool it would have been if this would have, if I would have had this when I was a kid, or, not using my big brick that I had. So, meters, we have these all-in-one meter type things, the Dario system, the POPS system, and then the Pogo system. So Dario's been out for a while. I know a lot of people have seen it. It's kind of this all-in-one piece that you can connect to your phone, and it's got a lancing device and a little spot up here for test strips. The POP system is one that is mounted to the back of your cell phone. It has 3 test strips here and then individual lancing devices up here on the top. So you truly use your phone, hit start. It tells you to go ahead and lance your finger and then put the blood on that test strip. Then you just cover it back up and you have your 3 tests in 1 cartridge, and then you toss the cartridge and put in a new cartridge when you are when you need that. And it does have some nice coaching aspects of it. There's some games associated with it, kind of like in the My Sugar app, where if you test your goal that day, it gives you more coins and that kind of a thing. The Pogo meter is one that I recently got, and I was rather impressed with. It's kind of this all-in-one system with a drum. It's a little bit bulky, so that was originally my kind of first thing. I was like, wow, this thing is kind of big, but has a drum on it, so I was expecting that. When I mean drum, I mean that the test strips are an all-in-one contained kind of disc that you put in the bottom of that, and you don't actually have to handle the test strips. But also in that drum, it also has lancing devices. So this system, you hit the power button and you put your finger over this little blue pad here, and the system actually starts creating suction. And then it lances your finger and grabs that droplet of blood, and then gives you your blood glucose level without you having to, milk your finger or changing out a test strip. I will tell you that when your fingers are really, really cold, it's best to warm them up first, and it takes a little bit of getting used to, kind of figuring out how hard you had to kind of push down for your different skin type. It does not have different lancing device options. It's all just the same thing, and you as a user kind of either hold your finger down a little bit lighter if you don't want as deep of a prick, or you hold down harder if you want a deeper prick to get that blood. And then it's also on a subscription-based program as well. Meters now send data wirelessly to mobile apps. And I know for us in the clinic, we love when patients are able to send us data remotely, or we're able to log into the cloud and see data without having to physically plug in a device and do those downloads, especially with the day and the age we are, or the time we're in right now with COVID, and we're doing everything remotely. Being able to have that data is what we need to make decisions about insulin treatments and different adjustments. And so without that data, it's really hard to make a good decision on what to adjust. A lot of meters now are coming with insulin advisors. So, Accu-chek Connect has an app now where it can say, it seems like you're running high at night or between 4 and 6 p.m. Maybe contact your provider and see if we need to make an insulin adjustment. There are more meters that now not only have meters, they also have blood ketone meters attached to them, or you just put a different test strip in and you could test your ketones or use it to test your blood sugar. There's even a machine now that you can test your ketones with a breathalyzer looking device. That was pretty cool to see. It's not, it's FDA approved, but it was approved for not for use with diabetes originally. It was for athletes and people doing the keto diet, but we've heard people are using it to check for ketones and it's working well. So there's some cool meter type devices. Infusion sets. This is my favorite topic, you guys, because I don't know if anybody else knew this, but infusion sets are the one thing in the diabetes world that has not changed in years. And every pump company has roughly the same 3 designs. They have like a Mio or a T90. We have a 30 or 45 degree cannula, and then a steel cannula or the metal one. And sometimes, there's like a quick set or some kind of like one-off one. But, and they're all made of kind of the same material. They're actually all made by, a lot of them by the exact same company with just different labeling. And so they've really needed an upgrade because that kinking is really hard, not too hard to make happen, right? We all seem to have issues with that from some point. And if you're not getting insulin, regardless of how amazing that system is or that algorithm is, if you're not getting insulin, you're still going to have highs and lows. So it's kind of exciting to hear the next 3 slides here about new types of infusion sets that will be longer wear and more flexible plastic or cannula options. So the first one here is not anything too crazy different. It's from Medtronic. It's called a Mio Advanced. It has been FDA approved, and they were doing a test limited launch, and I have not heard if it's actually able to get now or publicly available yet, but hopefully at some point will. I know it's available in Europe. It's kind of an all-in-one system where you just kind of remove this topper and hit the button at the top, and it launches and then rehides that needle right away. So you don't have to see the needle. It's got 90-degree kind of insertion, but also you only have that one button to press. You don't have to worry about hitting those 2 at the exact same time, or it might go in at kind of a weird angle. So definitely a nice advancement from the current Mio. So I say coming soon, and I feel like I've been saying coming soon for quite a while, but the Capillary BioMEDICAL is working on something called a steady set, which was anticipated at the end of 2019, and then we have COVID and everything else that's happening, and now the date of when it's planning to launch is a little bit unclear, but definitely something that will still eventually get there. They did have quite a bit of loans coming in, and money went from Helmsley Charitable Trust in October, and it was 1.5 million for a clinical study. So it's good to hear that they are still moving along and maybe making some adjustments and some improvements to what we saw when I chatted with the group back in 2019. They are going for 7-day wear, and they have adapters for all pumps. They are also trying to work with Omnipod to be able to have this type of infusion set in their pump as well. They have a kink-free cannula. So if you're looking here in this picture, you can see this tubing, but you can also see this metal coil. And that coil in there is making it so that when you bend it, the coil kind of clinks together, but doesn't allow that piece to actually fully go in half and block that insulin from coming out. It also has punctures throughout the whole side of the pump, so that if one tube or one piece gets blocked off, you can still have insulin delivery out the other holes. when I saw this thing and when they kind of showed me a video and were kind of playing with it, it kind of reminded me of like those like inflatable things at car dealerships, you know, that they kind of plug in and they kind of like their arms are going all over the place. This thing, you know, whether or not it wasn't in the body, but it was kind of just holding it up and it was kind of flopping all over. And so it was just really flexible. It moves with the body versus kind of, you know, if you're kind of like twisting too much or you're bending up and down. Sometimes my current cannula can kink if I put it in kind of a weird spot where I'm doing a lot of bending and things. And then it has this nice all-in-one aspect to it where it's got everything in this cute little kind of case, and you can use it to inject your system and then be able to kind of put it all back in there in this sharps proof container. And you know, and just actually put it right in the sharps container or toss it, and not have to worry about you know, kind of puncturing the side or hurting your finger when you pull it out of your bag later or anything, right?
Are you guys doing that Medtronic 7-day wear study right now?
Say it again.
Are you guys doing the Medtronic 7-day wear study right now?
We are not.
Okay.
We are not. I know that's going on, but we are not a site that has that one.
Okay.
But yes, there's lots on the market. From everybody has kind of got on this bandwagon of, great, we have all these systems that are great, and we've got these great you know, algorithms, but we're still having these problems with infusion sets. And so it's kind of the race now to who can come up with the best infusion set, which is going to be fantastic for us when we actually get it there, right? Another company, so Convotech, or Uno, what's also known as Uno Medical, which is the group that makes pretty much all of the infusion sets on the market today. They're coming up with what's called a lantern infusion set, which is where this infusion set here, so if you're kind of looking here at the skin, right, here's kind of your tissue here, and here's muscle. And let's say you have your infusion set in there, and when your arm is you know, flat, and you're not flexing that muscle, you're not hitting the cannula, but let's say you move or bend and then you kind of hit the bottom, and that tubing kinks, right? And typically you'd have an ugly kink and you pull it out and you're like, oh, that's why my blood sugar's 300. Now it's kind of got these little slits made all the way up and down, so that when that happens, the thing will bend and allow the insulin to still flow out freely. And then once you relax, it'll go right back to the normal position. This is a picture here of no site failure at day 10. And you can see the skin even just, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was a little concerned after I took something off after 10 days like that, I'd have this big rash, which is kind of silly because I wear my Dexcom for 10 days and I don't have an issue. But, you know, infusion set's new and different. I kind of had a little bit of a worry about that. So this was a small study. It was 29 people, and they averaged 8.6 days of wear trialing this infusion set. So they are doing a multi-center trial to hopefully get this thing to market. It is coded to suppress the foreign body response. So it's basically coded in the stuff that makes it so your body isn't trying to reject this thing that it recognizes shouldn't be in the body. Go ahead, Lisa.
So when I went on the pump many, many years ago, they used to have 7-day wear. And then after, you know, we had done that for, I don't know, 4 years, 8 years, it caused a lot of scar tissue. Is this coating going to keep that from happening?
It should, yes. So the coating is supposed to make it so that there's less of that, you know. Were you using a metal infusion set? No, plastic.
Well, I was using Designations
Okay.
at the time, and then Medtronic, and I thought it was great because I went from shots to, you know, a 7-day wear. But I did get a lot of scar tissue that took a while, you know, to heal. And then the other part was the insulin couldn't stay in the pump that long, and that's when it went to the 2 to the 3. So that's why I was asking when I saw that how they got around that.
Yes, so that coating is definitely something that helps with that part. You know, the more flexible that this material gets is also going to help as well. You know, when you think about, I like to do kind of like the Jell-O analogy. So if you think about a metal infusion set, and or if you take your metal spoon and you put it in your cup of Jell-O and you're moving it around, right? It kind of tears through that Jell-O and can cause some pretty bad scar tissue. If you were to take a plastic straw, you're still going to have some damage, but much less. So with like the infusion set right before this one, where you can see, I kind of told you it's when it's upside down and not in anything, it's kind of flopping around everywhere. So it's making it so that when your body's moving, that infusion set's going with you and reducing even more of that scar tissue buildup. But you know, again, we're still putting something in the body, and so I don't know if it's fair to say that we could completely reduce that. But you know, the one thing we can do is also do some nice site rotation, which I know we talk about, right? It's kind of like, yeah, I know that one, but just remembering that, you know, we have a part in it too. We got to remember, I know I have my favorite spots that I have a hard time getting away from. Okay, so anticipated launch time frame, you know, it started in 2019, was this large multi-center trial, and then COVID. So I don't have a date for you guys yet, but to hear that they've already started that big trial means that we could see it, you know, hopefully in the next year or two. That'd be pretty nice. Okay. There you go, guys. I'm at the end of my slides for now.
You're not gonna tell people about those cool decal stickers and everything that you do?
I could definitely do that.
It's up to you.
You know, how about I send you something to throw in with the kind of the recap email? Is that okay?
Sure.
Should we do that?
Sure.
Something I do on the side, guys, is I got a Cricut one year for Christmas, and I decided I was tired of my pump looking boring and ugly. And especially for kids, I think about, as you know, like as I was a kid, everybody saw my, like, you know, my ancient pager beaver looking stuff, and it was not cool or fun, or, you know, you didn't want people to see it. And now you're wearing an insulin pump, you might as well have glitter and other things on it if you want to. So I have stickers that you can get online I just sell on an Etsy page. I just do it on the side you know, I created one that worked for my pump, and everybody was asking about it, and so I just kind of continued making them, and it's fun. It's definitely, you know, worth it. I have it for all the big pump companies, and then all the CGM companies that are out now as well. Well, thanks, Brad. I appreciate that.
I figured you did this very long presentation without eating, and I hope the blood sugar is doing fine there too. But
it's doing good. That's why it was black a little earlier. I'm like, shoving food in a little bit, and it was all good. I love doing this kind of thing, and I'm more than happy to ask questions or answer questions. And yeah, my computer is getting a little low on battery, so I'm not sure how much time I have, or if all of a sudden it falls off. That's probably what happened. But I can always respond by email too.
Gotcha. Any questions that people have for Caitlin or about the presentation at all? Feel free to unmute and chime in. And
thank you, Caitlin. Great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
I always have questions, but one of the things I noticed with my Tandem pump that I didn't notice with my Medtronic, but my Medtronic was not a computer, it was that old Paradigm one, is that I'm having trouble with temperature. So I'm noticing in the summertime when I'm outside and I'm gardening, my insulin's going bad. It feels like it's not as insulated. And I remember when last winter when I shoveled, it was giving me alarms that it was too cold. And I'm wondering if, you know, our pump companies kind of looking at that, you know, it needs to have at least an insulated case or something to kind of protect it. Because, you know, inside, you know, it's in my pocket, and in the wintertime it's close to my body. But I remember shoveling and it was like it was cold out, and it was like, well, you know, my jeans weren't enough to keep it warm.
And so Lisa, did it alarm for you, you said, or did I say that right?
It did in the cold.
And it did in the cold, okay.
And so I had to kind of bury it in something. In the summer, it does an alarm. I just noticed all of a sudden my insulin stops working, you know, and it's not a new cartridge. It's not anything. It was just that, you know, we had some really hot, humid days this summer, and I had never noticed that with my Medtronic. But like I said, it wasn't a computer, you know, so I'm thinking that might be part of it too, that part got a little warm.
Yeah, it's something that they, you know, pump companies are always looking for feedback from people with diabetes. You know, one of the things that I do every year is I go to this conference called the Friends for Life conference. Originally, I was really kind of unsure if it's something I wanted to go to. It seemed like it was something for children, or for, you know, people with kids that had diabetes to meet each other. And boy, was I wrong. I got down there and there was people of all ages with diabetes, and you learn everything top to bottom, front to back, on any subject related to diabetes, technology, even law, and to work requirements, and how to work with your employer, and how to pick good insurance. And it's just an incredible conference. And one of the things that happens there is they do quite a few panels, or patient panels, where they want you to come in, and they oftentimes give you a gift card for your time, which is silly because, you know, they're happy to give the advice. Half the time I'm shocked that they're even wanting to pay me for it. I'm just happy to have somebody listen, right? And they want to hear these things. They always ask, you know, tell us what you like about your pump, but they want to hear all the bad things. Tell us all your criticism, because we want to hear these different pieces. I know with my Tandem pump, it does, I've left my pump in the car when I've gone swimming, and it wasn't my intention to leave it in the car. I just realized it later, and my pump would not let me hook it back up because it had gotten too hot. It actually wouldn't even let me use it until it cooled back down, and it automatically made me change out the cartridge. But again, you know, that's just that setting that it has. Maybe that's not a tight enough setting for everybody, and so that I'm sure they would like to hear that feedback. And so you know, they're always thinking about those things. They're always asking, you know, when I go to these things, they always ask us these questions. And sometimes it's like, I don't know where you got a complaint about that, or that's the silliest thing I've ever heard that you're even considering. But it's just amazing to see how much they're really trying to make sure that they're doing some improvements and making things easier. And so I would definitely encourage you even to write a letter or send an email, because they do read those things, and it does can make an impact. So that would be kind of my advice or suggestion.
Great. I did link into Caitlin Marie's decals on the chat. If anybody wants to look into that, like the Omnipod, Libres, Dexcom, all kinds of things. So just
lots of fun colors, Baby Yoda.
Speaking of, what Disney Plus is coming out with the second season of Mandalorian.
Gotta count down.
What's your top maybe 4 or 5 research projects that you're looking for people right now?
So right now I think I actually only have 3 things I'm recruiting for. So when we start a study, we might be recruiting really fast and hard, and then we might not be recruiting for anything for a little while, because we once we recruit all the patients, we have to finish out those studies. Some studies are nice and short, like 3 months, and then sometimes they're like 5 years, or even 7 and 10 years. And so we may not have a whole lot of new going on. You know, right now we're recruiting for, let me actually pull up my little site here so I can make sure I'm speaking to what is accurate.
Can you say what's going underway, or are you limited with what you can say, Caitlin?
So anything that's going underway at our clinic, you can find on clinicaltrials.gov. So it's not anything that isn't public information.
Okay.
So currently we're working on a trial with the Medtronic 780 system. We did trials for both of those. We also are doing the Medtronic PCL closed loop study, which is, you know, just want to make sure I make the indication that everything that I say are things that are found publicly, you know, or told to me through others' experiences, so that I'm not giving away trade secrets or anything like that. It's all things that are on kind of investor meetings. But so PCL, we're working on that one. That's pretty far out.